3:30 in the morning, and my wife was putting on the performance of her life. Too bad the only audience was me, and I'd already seen this show before. "Lucas! Oh my God! Lucas!" Ivy burst through our bedroom door like she'd just escaped a terrifying situation. Her perfectly styled blonde hair was artfully disheveled, her designer pajamas torn in exactly the right places. She'd even managed to work up some tears. "Someone broke in. They destroyed everything." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I sat up in bed, rubbing my eyes. After 15 years as an auto mechanic in this godforsaken Massachusetts coastal town, I'd developed a sixth sense for bullshit. And right now, my detector was screaming. "Slow down," I said, reaching for my jeans. "What happened?" "It was Tom!" she sobbed, collapsing onto the bed with theatrical precision. "I saw him running out the back door. He trashed the living room, smashed the TV, threw things everywhere." Tom Daly, my best friend since we were 12, building go-karts in my dad's garage. The guy who'd been my best man, who'd helped me through my father's funeral, who'd never hurt a fly unless it was buzzing around his beer. "Tom broke into our house," I repeated slowly. "Yes, call the police." I studied my wife's face in the dim light filtering through our bedroom window. Ivy Grant, 33 years old, owner of the most successful boutique in downtown Millbrook. Beautiful, ambitious, and lately colder than a January morning on the harbor. "Why would Tom break into our house, Ivy?" Her eyes flashed with something that wasn't fear. "How should I know? Maybe he's jealous of what we have. Maybe he's drunk. Just call 911. I pulled on my shirt and walked toward the living room. "Let me see the damage first." What I found was impressive, I'll give her that. Our 65-inch TV lay shattered on the hardwood floor, the coffee table overturned, couch cushions scattered like confetti, picture frames smashed, books torn apart, even my favorite beer mug reduced to ceramic shards. But here's the thing about being a mechanic. You learn to spot what doesn't belong. And what didn't belong was the pattern of destruction. Everything valuable was carefully avoided. My expensive tool set untouched. Ivy's jewelry box sitting pretty on the mantel. Her laptop safe on the kitchen counter. "This is terrible," I said, pulling out my phone. "I should definitely call the police." Relief flooded Ivy's face. "Yes, hurry." I dialed 911, but as I waited for the operator, I walked to the back door, the one Tom supposedly escaped through. The deadbolt was still locked from the inside. The security chain hung in place. No broken glass, no Jimmy marks on the frame. 911, what's your emergency? "This is Lucas Grant on Maple Street. My wife says someone broke into our house." 20 minutes later, Detective Karen Moulton stood in our living room, taking notes with the enthusiasm of someone who'd rather be home in bed. She was a 40-something woman with graying hair and eyes that had seen too much of humanity's stupidity. "So you saw the intruder?" she asked Ivy. "Yes, it was Tom Daly. He lives on Elm Street, the blue apartment building." "And he ran out the back door?" "That's right." Detective Moulton walked to the back door, examined the locks, then turned to me. "Mr. Grant, you installed that security system last month, didn't you? I remember the permit application." I nodded. "Full coverage. Motion sensors, cameras, the works." "Cameras," the detective repeated, looking at Ivy with interest. "Well, that should make this case pretty straightforward." The color drained from my wife's face. "Cameras?" "4 of them," I said helpfully. "One covering the back door, one on the front, 2 inside. Everything gets stored on the cloud server." Detective Moulton pulled out her tablet. "Mind if we take a look?" 5 minutes later, we were all gathered around the device, watching high-definition footage of my wife's one-woman demolition show. There she was at 2:47 a.m., systematically destroying our living room while wearing the same torn pajamas she'd claimed to be sleeping in. The performance was even more impressive in replay. She'd really committed to the role. "Well," Detective Moulton said dryly, "this is interesting." Ivy's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. I can explain." "Please do," I said, crossing my arms. I wanted attention. You never pay attention to me anymore, Lucas. You're always at the shop, or with Tom, or watching sports. I thought if something dramatic happened, you'd realize how much you needed me." The detective looked at me with something approaching sympathy. "Mr. Grant, do you want to press charges for filing a false report and destruction of property?" I stared at my wife. Really looked at her for the first time in months. The designer clothes, the perfect makeup even at 3 a.m, the calculated tears. When had she become a stranger? "No," I said finally, "but I think my wife needs to cool off somewhere else for a while." As Detective Moulton packed up her equipment, I walked to my desk and pulled out the manila envelope I'd been carrying around for 2 weeks. Inside were divorce papers, prepared by the best lawyer in town and paid for with money from my secret account, the one Ivy didn't know about. "Here," I said, handing her the envelope as she gathered her things, "since you want drama so badly." She opened it, read the first page, and her face went white. "Lucas, you can't be serious." "Absolutely serious. You tried to take me for a ride, Ivy. You just didn't know I'd already cut the brakes." As she stormed out of the house, Detective Moulton lingered by the door. "Off the record, Mr. Grant, I've seen a lot of crazy in this job, but that was something special." "Yeah," I said, surveying the wreckage of my living room and my marriage. "It really was." After everyone left, I sat in my recliner, one of the few things that had survived Ivy's theatrical rampage, and cracked open a beer. Outside, the first hints of dawn were creeping over Millbrook Harbor, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom. "Dude, cops just left my place. What the hell is going on?" I typed back, "Long story. Meet me at the shop in an hour. Bring coffee." As I finished my beer, I realized something had shifted inside me. For months, I'd been sleepwalking through my marriage, ignoring the signs, making excuses for Ivy's increasingly erratic behavior. But watching her destroy our home to frame my best friend had flipped a switch I didn't even know existed. She wanted drama. She was about to get more than she bargained for. Tom showed up at my auto shop with 2 cups of coffee and a bewildered expression that would have been funny under different circumstances. "So, let me get this straight," he said, settling onto a workbench while I popped the hood on Mrs. Peterson's ancient Honda. "Ivy trashed your living room, told the cops I did it, and got caught on camera." That's the short version. Jesus, Lucas. I knew she didn't like me, but framing me for breaking and entering? That's some next-level crazy. I'd been thinking the same thing all morning. Ivy had never been particularly warm toward Tom, but outright trying to get him arrested was a massive escalation. There had to be more to the story. "When's the last time you talked to her?" I asked. Tom scratched his stubbled chin. "Maybe 3 weeks ago? I stopped by the boutique to pick up that scarf for my mom's birthday. Ivy was weird, jumpy, kept checking her phone." "Jumpy how?" "Like she was expecting someone, or hiding something." He paused. "You think she's having an affair?" The question hung in the air like exhaust fumes. I'd been avoiding it for months, but the signs were all there. The late nights, doing inventory, the sudden interest in expensive lingerie, the way she'd started password protecting her phone. "Maybe," I admitted. "Want me to ask around? Chelsea Morrison works at the boutique part-time. She loves to gossip." Chelsea Morrison, 22 years old, fresh out of community college, and possessing the supernatural ability to know everyone's business before they knew it themselves. If Ivy was stepping out, Chelsea would know. "Do it," I said, "but be subtle." Tom snorted. "Subtle is my middle name." After he left, I spent the morning working on cars and thinking. Ivy's behavior over the past few months suddenly made more sense viewed through the lens of an affair. The new clothes, the gym membership, the way she'd started picking fights over nothing. Classic cheater behavior, create conflict to justify the betrayal. Around noon, my phone rang. Chelsea's name appeared on the screen. "Mr. Grant? Tom said you wanted to talk? Can you come by the shop? I'll pay you for your time." 20 minutes later, Chelsea walked into my garage wearing jeans and a Millbrook Community College sweatshirt. She had the eager expression of someone about to spill the tea of the century. "So," she said without preamble, "you want to know about Mrs. Grant and Elliot Bishop?" Elliot Bishop. The name hit me like a wrench to the gut. He was a real estate developer who'd moved to Millbrook 2 years ago, buying up waterfront properties and turning them into overpriced condos. Mid-30s, expensive suits, the kind of guy who drove a BMW and treated service workers like furniture. "How long?" I asked. 3 months, maybe 4. They meet at the boutique after hours, sometimes at his condo on Harbor View. Chelsea settled onto a milk crate, clearly enjoying herself. She thinks she's being sneaky, but his car's pretty hard to miss. "What else?" "She's been talking about leaving you. Says you don't appreciate her, that you're holding her back. Elliot's been filling her head with ideas about moving to Boston, opening a bigger store." The pieces were falling into place. Ivy hadn't just been cheating. She'd been planning her exit strategy. The false police report wasn't random crazy. It was calculated. Frame Tom, make me look unstable by association, maybe claim I was abusive, get sympathy, get the house, get a clean start with her developer boyfriend. "There's more," Chelsea said, leaning forward conspiratorially. "I heard them talking last week. She was worried about the divorce, about what you might find out. Elliot told her not to worry, that they'd figure out a way to make you look like the bad guy." "Any idea how?" "Something about your temper. She kept saying you had anger issues, that people would believe you snapped." Chelsea shrugged. "Course, anyone who knows you knows that's bullshit. You're like the calmest guy in town." After Chelsea left, I sat in my office staring at the framed photo on my desk. Ivy and me on our wedding day, both of us grinning like idiots. She'd been 23 then, working at a department store in Boston. I'd been 26, recently back from trade school, full of plans for expanding my dad's garage. We'd been happy once. Or at least I thought we had. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stay away from my girlfriend or you'll regret it." I stared at the message, then started laughing. I was still laughing when Tom walked back into the shop. "What's so funny?" I showed him the text. "Elliot Bishop thinks I'm the threat." Tom read the message, his expression darkening. "This piece of shit is threatening you? After screwing your wife?" "Apparently." "What are you going to do about it?" I looked around my shop, the business I'd built from nothing, the place where I'd spent the best years of my life fixing things that were broken. Some things, though, were beyond repair. Some things needed to be scrapped and replaced. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want," I said. "Which is?" I smiled, and for the first time in months, it felt genuine. "A war." The first shot was fired at 7:30 that evening, right in front of Millbrook's most popular restaurant. I'd spent the afternoon doing reconnaissance, tracking Ivy and Elliot's movements through a combination of Chelsea's intel and good old-fashioned stakeout work. They had a routine: dinner at Romano's every Tuesday, then back to his condo for what I'm sure they thought was discreet romance. Tom and I positioned ourselves across the street, watching through the restaurant's front windows as they shared appetizers and played footsie under the table. Ivy was wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, probably bought with money from our joint account. "There they are," Tom muttered, adjusting his baseball cap. "Look at her, acting like she's in some romantic movie. She always did have a flair for drama." At 8:15, they emerged from the restaurant, Elliot's hand possessively placed on the small of Ivy's back. He was exactly what I'd expected. Tall, artificially tanned, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. They were so absorbed in each other that they didn't notice me walking up until I was 10 feet away. "Evening, honey," I called out cheerfully. Ivy spun around, her face cycling through surprise, guilt, and anger in rapid succession. "Lucas, what are you doing here?" "Just grabbing dinner. You remember me, right? Your husband?" Elliot stepped forward, puffing out his chest like a peacock. "I think you should leave." "Should I?" I looked him up and down slowly. "And you are?" "Elliot Bishop." "Ah, the boyfriend. Nice to finally meet you." I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small wrapped box. "I brought you a gift." Elliot looked confused but accepted the box. "What is it?" "Open it." He unwrapped it carefully, then his face went bright red. Inside was a pack of condoms with a note attached. "For when you're screwing my wife," which apparently is every Tuesday. The box hit the sidewalk, condoms scattering across the pavement. Several restaurant patrons had gathered to watch, their phones already out and recording. "You son of a bitch," Elliot snarled, lunging forward. I sidestepped easily, letting him stumble past me. "Careful there, Romeo. Wouldn't want to mess up that pretty suit." "Lucas, stop it," Ivy hissed. "You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I? Because from where I'm standing, you're the one who should be embarrassed. How long have you been lying to me, Ivy? 3 months? 4? It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You've been cheating, planning to leave, and last night you tried to frame Tom for breaking and entering to make me look unstable." I raised my voice, making sure the growing crowd could hear. "Tell me, was the plan to claim I was abusive next? Get a restraining order, take the house?" Ivy's silence was all the confirmation I needed. "That's enough," Elliot said, trying to regain his composure. "Ivy, we're leaving." "Good idea," I said. "But Elliot, next time you want to threaten someone via text, maybe don't use your real number. Makes you look amateur." As they hurried away, I heard the distinctive sound of social media notifications pinging from multiple phones. By tomorrow morning, half of Millbrook would know about Ivy's affair. Tom appeared at my elbow, grinning. "That was beautiful, man. Did you see his face when those condoms hit the ground?" "Phase 1 complete," I said, watching Ivy and Elliot disappear around the corner. "Now things get interesting." The next morning brought the inevitable phone call from Ivy's parents. Harold and Margaret Whitman had never liked me. I wasn't good enough for their precious daughter, didn't have the right education or social connections. They'd made their disapproval clear from day one of our relationship. "Lucas," Harold's voice was cold with fury. "What's this we hear about you harassing Ivy in public? Is that what she told you? That I harassed her? You humiliated her in front of half the town. She humiliated herself by cheating on me with that real estate parasite." I was in my office, feet up on the desk, enjoying the conversation more than I probably should have. "But thanks for calling, Harold. Saves me the trouble of tracking you down." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means your daughter tried to frame my best friend for a crime she committed herself. It means she's been stealing money from our joint account to fund her affair. It means I'm done playing nice." There was a long pause. "You can't prove any of that." "Can I? See, the thing about security cameras is they record everything. And the thing about credit card statements is they don't lie. Ivy's been sloppy, Harold, very sloppy." Another pause, shorter this time. "What do you want?" "Nothing from you, but you might want to tell your daughter that if she tries to file any false reports about me, I'll make sure every piece of evidence gets sent to the police, the local newspaper, and anyone else who might be interested." I hung up before he could respond, then immediately called my lawyer to make sure all the paperwork was in order. Ivy would escalate. It was in her nature. But I'd be ready. The afternoon brought a visit from Chelsea, who burst into my shop with the excitement of someone bearing the gossip of the century. "Mr. Grant, you need to hear this," she said breathlessly. Mrs. Grant came into the boutique this morning absolutely losing her mind. She was screaming at customers, throwing things around. Mrs. Patterson, you know, the mayor's wife, walked out without buying anything. What was she screaming about? You. She was telling everyone you're stalking her, that you're dangerous, that people shouldn't believe anything you say. Chelsea paused for dramatic effect. But here's the thing, nobody believed her. Everyone in town saw that video from last night. She just looked crazy. The video. I'd almost forgotten about that. How bad is it? Chelsea pulled out her phone and showed me. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Ivy and Elliot looking guilty, the condom box hitting the ground, Elliot's red-faced fury, my calm demeanor throughout. The comments were brutal. It's been shared like 300 times, Chelsea said. Everyone's talking about it. Perfect. In a town like Millbrook, reputation was everything. Ivy had built her business on being the sophisticated city girl who'd brought culture to our little coastal community. Now she was just another cheating wife caught in public. There's something else, Chelsea said, lowering her voice. I heard Mrs. Grant on the phone with someone. I think it was Elliot. She was talking about getting back at you, making you pay for embarrassing her. Any specifics? Something about your business license, maybe getting the health department involved? I couldn't hear everything. I nodded. It was a predictable move. If you can't attack someone directly, go after their livelihood. But I'd been running my shop for over a decade without a single violation. Let them waste their time. Thanks for the heads up, Chelsea. This stays between us, right? Of course, Mr. Grant. Besides, she grinned, I'm having way too much fun watching this play out. After she left, I sat in my office making plans. Ivy wanted to escalate? Fine. But she was about to learn that 15 years of fixing broken things had taught me exactly how to take them apart. The health department showed up Thursday morning, just as Chelsea had predicted. 2 inspectors with clipboards and attitudes, clearly expecting to find violations that would justify shutting me down. 3 hours later, they left empty-handed and slightly embarrassed. My shop was cleaner than most hospitals, my paperwork was immaculate, and my waste disposal procedures exceeded state requirements by a comfortable margin. Someone filed a complaint, the lead inspector admitted, as they packed up. Anonymous tip about improper chemical storage and safety violations. Anonymous, I repeated. How convenient. For what it's worth, Mr. Grant, this was obviously a waste of everyone's time. Your operation is spotless. After they left, I called Tom. Phase 2 is starting. You ready? Born ready. What's the plan? Meet me at the harbor tonight, 11 o'clock, and bring your camera. Elliot Bishop lived in Harbor View condominiums, a glass and steel monument to gentrification that had replaced the old fisherman's co-op 2 years ago. His unit was on the 3rd floor, with a balcony overlooking the water, and a designated parking spot for his precious BMW. Tom and I positioned ourselves in the shadows across the street, watching as lights came on in Elliot's condo around 10:30. Through the large windows, we could see him and Ivy moving around, probably sharing a nightcap and congratulating themselves on their clever health department gambit. There's his car, Tom whispered, pointing to the silver BMW parked under a streetlight. Beautiful machine, I said, pulling on latex gloves. Be a shame if something happened to it. What happened next wasn't technically illegal. I'd checked with my lawyer. Elliot's car was parked on a public street, and I didn't actually damage anything permanently. I simply redistributed some materials. The sugar went into the gas tank. An old myth, actually. Sugar doesn't dissolve in gasoline, so it just sits at the bottom harmlessly. But most people don't know that, and the psychological effect is devastating. The shrimp, however, were placed strategically in the air conditioning vents. Come summer, Elliot's luxury sedan would smell like low tide at its worst. The final touch was artistic. I used washable paint to write "Home Wrecker" across his windshield in elegant script. Tom documented everything with his phone, careful to keep my face out of the shots. This is beautiful, man. He's going to lose his mind. That's the idea. We were back across the street within 10 minutes, just in time to watch Elliot discover his redecorated vehicle. His scream of rage echoed off the harbor water, bringing lights on in several neighboring condos. Should we call the police? Tom asked innocently. Probably. Anonymous tip about a disturbance. The police arrived 15 minutes later, just as Elliot was trying to scrape paint off his windshield with a credit card. Officer Martinez, a guy I'd known since high school, took one look at the scene and started asking questions. Any idea who might have done this, Mr. Bishop? It was Lucas Grant. He's been harassing me and my girlfriend. Can you prove that? Elliot sputtered, pointing at his car like it was evidence of war crimes. Who else would do something like this? Could be anyone, sir. You're not exactly popular around here. Officer Martinez's tone was professionally neutral, but I caught the hint of amusement. Have you been having an affair with a married woman? That's not relevant. Actually, sir, it kind of is. Gives you a lot of potential enemies. From our position across the street, Tom and I watched Elliot's increasingly frantic attempts to convince the police to arrest me based on pure speculation. It was better than cable television. No evidence, no witnesses, no case, Officer Martinez finally said. I'll file a report, but unless you have proof of who did this, there's not much we can do. After the police left, Elliot stormed back into his condo, probably to call Ivy and vent his frustration. I imagined that conversation would be interesting. Two people who'd thought they were so clever, suddenly realizing they were playing against someone who actually knew the rules. Friday brought the inevitable escalation. I was under the hood of a pickup truck when Chelsea burst into the shop, practically vibrating with excitement. Mr. Grant, you're not going to believe this. Try me. Mrs. Grant is telling everyone you vandalized Elliot's car. She's got no proof, but she's going around town claiming you're dangerous, that you're stalking them. I straightened up, wiping grease off my hands. Anyone believing her? That's the best part. No. Everyone knows she's a cheater now. Mrs. Patterson told her to shut up and mind her own business. Right in the middle of the grocery store. The tide was turning. In a small town, social dynamics were everything, and Ivy had badly miscalculated. By trying to paint me as the villain, she'd only reminded people that she was the one who'd betrayed her marriage vows. There's more, Chelsea continued. I heard her on the phone with her parents. They're talking about hiring a private investigator to dig up dirt on you. Let them waste their money. I've got nothing to hide. But even as I said it, I was already planning my next move. If Ivy wanted to play detective, I'd give her something to investigate. That evening, I drove to the boutique and parked across the street. Ivy's car was there, along with Elliot's freshly cleaned BMW. They were inside, probably planning their next attempt to destroy my reputation. I pulled out my phone and called the boutique's main number. Ivy's boutique. This is Ivy speaking. Hi, this is Detective Johnson from the State Police. We've received reports of suspicious activity at your location. Could you step outside so we can verify everything is secure? There was a long pause. Suspicious activity? What kind of suspicious activity? Possible break-in in progress. We just need to confirm you're safe. I watched through the store windows as Ivy frantically gestured to Elliot, then grabbed her purse and headed for the door. They both emerged onto the sidewalk, looking around nervously for police cars that weren't coming. While they stood outside like idiots, I used the security system app on my phone, the one I'd installed and still had admin access to trigger the store's alarm system. The shrieking siren echoed through downtown Millbrook, bringing actual police cars within minutes. Ivy and Elliot found themselves trying to explain to real officers why they'd been standing outside when their own alarm went off. So you received a call from Detective Johnson? Officer Martinez asked, consulting his notes. Yes, he said there were reports of suspicious activity. Ma'am, we don't have anyone named Detective Johnson, and we didn't receive any reports about your store. I could see the exact moment Ivy realized she'd been played. Her face went white, then red, then settled into an expression of pure fury. "It was him," she said, pointing randomly into the darkness. "Lucas did this somehow." "Did what exactly? Called you and told you to leave your own store?" As I drove away, I could hear Ivy's voice rising to a shriek, demanding that the police arrest me for something, anything. The fact that I'd committed no actual crime seemed irrelevant to her. Phase 3 was complete. Now it was time for the finale. Saturday morning brought a knock on my door that I'd been expecting. Detective Moulton stood on my porch with 2 cups of coffee and an expression that suggested she was tired of dealing with my domestic drama. "Mr. Grant, we need to talk." "Come in. Coffee smells good." She settled into my kitchen chair, one of the few pieces of furniture that had survived Ivy's theatrical rampage. "Your wife has filed 3 complaints against you in the past week: harassment, stalking, and vandalism. Any evidence?" "None whatsoever, but she's persistent. I'll give her that." Detective Moulton sipped her coffee. "She's also claiming you somehow triggered her store alarm remotely." "Did I?" "Well, that's the interesting question. See, I called the security company. Turns out the system was activated using admin credentials that were issued to you when you installed the system." I nodded. "That's correct. But here's the thing. You're still legally married. The store is jointly owned, so technically, you have every right to access your own security system." Technically. She smiled slightly. "Your wife doesn't seem to understand the concept of joint property." Ivy never was good with details. Detective Moulton leaned back in her chair. "Off the record, Mr. Grant, I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've seen a lot of cheating spouses, and most of them have the decency to feel guilty about it. Your wife, on the other hand, seems to think she's the victim here. She always did have a talent for rewriting history. Well, here's some history she can't rewrite. I've got her on camera destroying your living room, filing a false police report, and wasting city resources with frivolous complaints." The detective stood up. "My advice? Finish your divorce proceedings quickly, before she does something really stupid." After she left, I sat in my kitchen thinking about endgames. Ivy was getting desperate, which made her dangerous. Desperate people made mistakes, but they also did unpredictable things. My phone rang. Tom's name on the caller ID. "Lucas, you need to get down here, now." "Where's here?" "The boutique. Ivy's having some kind of breakdown." I arrived to find a crowd gathered outside Ivy's store, everyone straining to see through the windows. Inside, I could see my wife throwing clothes around, screaming at someone on her phone. "She's been at it for an hour," Tom said, appearing at my elbow. "Started right after the detective left your place." Through the glass, I could see Ivy's face, red, twisted with rage, completely out of control. This wasn't the calculated performance from earlier in the week. This was genuine hysteria. What set her off? Chelsea quit this morning, walked out right in the middle of the Saturday rush, said she was tired of working for a crazy person. I watched my wife destroy her own business, throwing merchandise around like confetti, and felt something I hadn't expected: pity. She'd built this store from nothing, turned it into the most successful boutique in town. Now she was tearing it apart with her own hands. "Should we call someone?" Tom asked. Before I could answer, Elliot's BMW pulled up to the curb. He jumped out, looking harried, and rushed into the store. Through the windows, we could see him trying to calm Ivy down, grabbing her hands to stop her from throwing things. That's when she hit him. The slap echoed even through the glass, and Elliot staggered backward, holding his cheek. The crowd outside went silent, everyone's phone cameras recording the drama. "Jesus," Tom whispered. "She's completely lost it." Elliot said something to Ivy. We couldn't hear what, and she responded by picking up a jewelry display case and hurling it at him. He ducked, and the case shattered against the wall behind him. That's when he ran. Elliot Bishop, The man who'd stolen my wife and threatened me via text message fled from a 120-pound woman in designer jeans. He burst out of the store, jumped in his BMW, and drove away without looking back. The crowd started laughing. Inside the store, Ivy seemed to realize she was alone. She looked around at the destruction she'd caused, then noticed the crowd outside. For a moment, she just stood there, surrounded by scattered clothes and broken glass, looking like a child who'd thrown a tantrum and suddenly understood the consequences. Then she saw me. Our eyes met through the window, and I saw something in her face I'd never seen before. Genuine fear. Not of me, but of what she'd become. The sophisticated woman who'd charmed half of Millbrook was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. She walked to the door and opened it slowly. "Lucas," she said quietly. The crowd strained to hear. "Can we talk?" "About what?" "About fixing this. About starting over." I looked at the destroyed boutique, then at the woman I'd married 15 years ago. "Some things can't be fixed, Ivy. Some things are just broken. But we had something good once." "Yeah, we did. Then you decided it wasn't good enough." She stepped toward me, and I could see her trying to summon the charm that had once worked so well. "I made mistakes. But we could try again. We could go to counseling, work through this." "Like you worked through it with Elliot?" Her face crumpled. "That's over. He left me. He said I was crazy, that he couldn't deal with the drama." "Smart man." "Lucas, please. I know I hurt you, but you tried to frame Tom for a crime you committed. You stole money from our joint account. You humiliated me in front of the entire town." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "And now you want me to feel sorry for you because your boyfriend ran away when things got messy. I love you." "No, Ivy. You love the idea of not losing. There's a difference." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the doorway of her destroyed store. The crowd began to disperse, everyone eager to spread the news of what they'd witnessed. "That was cold, man," Tom said as we walked back to his truck. "She made her choices. What happens now?" I pulled out my phone and checked my messages. 3 texts from my lawyer, 2 from Detective Moulton, and 1 from a number I didn't recognize. The unknown number's message was short. "Your wife is insane. I'm done. Don't contact me again. E." I showed the text to Tom, who started laughing. "Even the boyfriend thinks she's crazy now. Looks that way." As we drove through downtown Millbrook, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The war was over, and I'd won not through violence or cruelty, but by simply letting Ivy destroy herself. Sometimes the best revenge is just stepping out of the way and letting karma do its work. But I wasn't done yet. There was still one more move to make. The divorce papers were finalized on a Tuesday morning in late October, exactly 3 weeks after Ivy's public breakdown at the boutique. I sat in my lawyer's office, signing documents that would officially end 15 years of marriage, while outside the window, Millbrook Harbor sparkled in the autumn sunshine. "She's agreed to all your terms," my lawyer said, sliding the final papers across his desk. "No alimony, 50-50 split of assets, and she keeps the boutique, what's left of it." "What about the house?" "Yours. She's waived all claims in exchange for keeping her business debts private." Business debts. That was an interesting way to put it. According to Chelsea, who'd found a new job at the bank and still loved to gossip, Ivy had been embezzling from the boutique's accounts for months, funding her affair with money that should have gone to suppliers and rent. "Where is she now?" "Moved back in with her parents in Springfield. Word is she's planning to start over somewhere else, maybe Florida." I signed the last document and felt 15 years of my life officially come to an end. It should have been sadder, but mostly I just felt relieved. "Congratulations, Mr. Grant, you're a free man." I drove straight from the lawyer's office to the old wharf, where Tom was waiting with a beer and a grin. How does it feel? He asked, as I settled onto the bar stool next to him. Like I just got out of prison. What's the first thing you want to do as a single man? I thought about it for a moment. Honestly, go home and watch the game without someone complaining about the noise. Tom laughed. You're a simple man with simple pleasures. Speaking of simple pleasures, I said, whatever happened to Elliot Bishop? Funny you should ask. Tom pulled out his phone and showed me a news article from the Boston Globe. Seems our boy Elliot had some financial troubles. The headline read, Local developer investigated for fraud. The article detailed how Elliot's construction company had been using substandard materials while billing clients for premium upgrades. Several of his Harbor View condos were now facing structural issues. Gets better, Tom said, scrolling down. Turns out he was using investor money to fund his lifestyle. That BMW, the fancy condo, all of it bought with other people's cash. So Ivy picked a winner. Oh, it gets even better. Remember how he threatened you via text? Well, apparently he sent similar messages to several other people, contractors he'd stiffed, investors he'd cheated. The FBI is using those texts as evidence of a pattern of intimidation. I read through the article, marveling at the irony. Ivy had thrown away a stable marriage for a man who turned out to be a criminal. Her judgment in men had always been questionable, but this was spectacular even by her standards. Think she knew? Tom asked. About the fraud? No way. Ivy's many things, but she's not stupid enough to get involved with something that obvious. I finished my beer. She was just attracted to the lifestyle. The money, the status, the idea of being with someone more sophisticated than a small-town mechanic. Her loss. Yeah, it is. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the harbor through the bar's salt-stained windows. A few fishing boats were coming in with the day's catch, their engines puttering against the tide. You know what the funny thing is? I said eventually. What's that? I actually feel sorry for her. Not because she got caught, but because she threw away something real for something fake. We had a good life here. Not glamorous, but real. She traded it for a fantasy. Tom nodded. Some people never learn to appreciate what they have. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I recognized the area code, Springfield, where Ivy's parents lived. I know you'll never forgive me, but I want you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. You deserved better. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some apologies come too late to matter. Ivy? Tom asked. Yeah. You going to respond? No point. She made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. I ordered another beer and thought about the future. For the first time in months, I could make plans without having to consider someone else's agenda. I could expand the shop, maybe hire another mechanic. I could travel, date, or just enjoy being alone. The possibilities felt endless. So what now? Tom asked, echoing my thoughts. Now I get back to living my life instead of just surviving it. Sounds like a plan. As the sun set over Millbrook Harbor, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about building a better life than the one they tried to take from you. Ivy had wanted drama, excitement, and passion. What she'd gotten was public humiliation, financial ruin, and a criminal boyfriend who'd abandoned her the moment things got difficult. I'd wanted peace, stability, and honesty. What I'd gotten was freedom, respect from my community, and the satisfaction of knowing I'd handled the whole situation with dignity. In the end, we'd both gotten exactly what we deserved. 3 months later, I was closing up the shop on a Friday evening when Chelsea stopped by with news. "Mr. Grant, you're not going to believe this," she said, practically bouncing with excitement. "What now?" "Mrs. Grant, well, I guess she's Ms. Whitman again. She's back in town." I looked up from the invoice I was completing. "Back for good?" "No, just visiting. She's staying at the Millbrook Inn." Word is she's broke, her parents kicked her out, and she's looking for work. Here. Apparently she applied at 3 different stores downtown. Nobody would hire her. Chelsea grinned. Turns out having a public breakdown and destroying your own business is bad for your resume. I felt a brief stab of something that might have been sympathy, but it passed quickly. Ivy had made her bed. Now she got to sleep in it. She asked about you, Chelsea continued. What did you tell her? That you were doing great. New truck, expanded the shop, dating that nice teacher from the elementary school. I wasn't actually dating anyone, but I appreciated Chelsea's creative embellishment. How did she take it? About like you'd expect. She started crying right there in the coffee shop. That evening, as I was locking up the shop, I saw a familiar figure walking down Main Street. Ivy looked older, thinner, wearing clothes that had seen better days. The designer wardrobe was gone, replaced by discount store basics. She saw me and stopped, standing under a streetlight like an actress waiting for her cue. Hello, Lucas. Ivy? You look good. Successful. I'm doing fine. She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself against the October chill. I heard about your business expansion. I'm glad things are working out for you. Thanks. We stood there for a moment, 2 people who'd once shared everything, now strangers making awkward small talk. I know I don't have the right to ask, she said finally, but I was wondering if you might need help at the shop. I'm good with bookkeeping, customer service. I studied her face in the streetlight. The arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine desperation. This wasn't manipulation. This was a woman who'd hit rock bottom and was looking for any way back up. I'm sorry, Ivy. I can't do that. Because you don't trust me? Because it wouldn't be fair to either of us. Too much history, too much hurt. She nodded, tears starting to form in her eyes. I understand. There are other businesses in town, other opportunities. Not for me, not after what I did. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I destroyed everything good in my life, Lucas. And for what? A man who turned out to be a criminal. A fantasy that was never real. People make mistakes. Not like this. Not mistakes that hurt everyone around them. She looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before, genuine remorse. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me because I was selfish and stupid and thought I deserved more than I had. You did deserve more, Ivy. You deserved to be happy, but you went about it the wrong way. I know that now. Too late, but I know. A car drove by, its headlights briefly illuminating both of us, before disappearing into the night. I should go, she said. I just wanted to see you one more time, to tell you I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not because I want something from you, but because you deserved better than what I gave you. She turned to walk away, then stopped. For what it's worth, Lucas, you won. Not because you destroyed me, but because you stayed true to who you are. That's something I never learned how to do. I watched her walk away, her figure disappearing into the darkness beyond the streetlights. It was the last time I ever saw her. The next morning, Chelsea told me Ivy had checked out of the inn and left town. Nobody knew where she'd gone, and nobody seemed particularly interested in finding out. Life in Millbrook returned to its normal rhythm. I expanded my business, started dating a kindergarten teacher named Sarah who laughed at my jokes and didn't care that I had grease under my fingernails. Tom got promoted to foreman at the shipyard and started talking about buying a house. The boutique sat empty for 6 months before being converted into a coffee shop run by a young couple from Portland. They kept some of the original fixtures, but the space felt completely different, warm and welcoming instead of cold and pretentious. Sometimes late at night when I was closing up the shop, I'd think about the woman I'd married and the woman she'd become. I'd wonder if things could have been different, if there was something I could have done to save our marriage. But mostly, I just felt grateful. Grateful that I'd discovered who Ivy really was before wasting any more years on a relationship built on lies. Grateful that I'd handled the situation with dignity instead of letting anger turn me into someone I wouldn't recognize. Most of all, I was grateful for the lesson Ivy had taught me without meaning to. That sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just living well, staying true to your principles, and letting other people's bad choices catch up with them naturally. She'd tried to break me, to turn me into the villain in her story. Instead, she'd freed me to become the hero of my own. And that, I realized, was the sweetest victory of all.